My name is Lili MENDOZA. I am from the Republic of Panama, and I don't think of myself as a writer, but I do some writing. The worst thing is being a writer. The best thing is not being one. Panama is a tropical paradise, and it's also an up-and-coming city. It's listed as one of the #1 destination to be seen in 2012 and 2013 by New York Times, and it's on National Geographic every other day. So it is that paradise, rainforest paradise that everyone dreams of. But it's also a place that is very recent. We gained our independence from Colombia in 1903. So we're a recent nation, and our memory is quite short. So being a writer, or try not to be one, I think I'm just taking snapshots of what I'm seeing, of the changes. Our memory is so young and it keeps changing. A Panamanian millisecond goes like this. And so I'm just trying to capture the sounds and the images of changing people and a changing landscape, so we eventually can go back and retrace us, not based on politics, but based on a memory of sentiment, of emotion. The ocean. The ocean. I found I was able to decode the writing thing when I was 4. So I read my newspaper and I started working on pieces of paper. So they sent me to kindergarten eventually, and I wrote, and I was writing. I wrote all along. I went to ballet school. I was always a performer, and but the writing kept me sane. I had a bit of a tough upbringing, and my parents were absolutely gorgeous and very deranged, and so it kept me afloat. It was my lifesaver, and it was an outlet to emotion and to create what didn't exist around me, which was, I grew up during a dictatorship also, so we had the dictatorship of the family and then of the country, and me being a young woman in Panama, a teenager. So it kept me afloat all these years. I wrote. To me, it means the outlet. To me now that I cannot dance, that I'm not playing music, that I'm not singing anymore, it's a way to exorcise, as in The Exorcist, to get out the emotion that comes with sound and rhythm, that I'm still able to compose and dance in my head. And bless writing, the day I can no longer see or use my hands, I'll still be able to use my voice. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to still touch the world in their very minds. I think it's a way of telepathy, writing.
You do it in 2 languages?
I only write in Spanish. I write to myself a lot in English in my journals, but I don't think I master the language to a point where I can wield that sword. I think there's two that are essential to me, and one of them is a novel by Argentinian writer Manuel Puig. It's called Boquitas Pintadas. And it's a collage of letters. I love writing letters. Nobody writes letters anymore. And it's something so private, handwriting. So anyways, it's a collection of letters, it's epistolar. And you recreate this love story gone wrong once the loved one dies. So, and you're also able to recreate relationships through friendships and the separation of a small town girl with aspirations of the big city and a settled Latin American middle age, middle class. That is instrumental. Manuel Puig was, I think, a genius that went unknown. He studied cinema, he studied filmmaking in Italy, and he used the dialogues of the movies to recreate, to construct it. So he was basically sampling. He used a lot of the sound from the movies, and that stuck with me. I read him when I was 14. And there's another piece of work that marked me, essentially, the grammar and the treatment of language, which is Naima Sasson writes poems. It's by Israeli writer Amelia Carmon. And it came to me in an anthology of contemporary Israeli literature at the age of 13, 14. And it is a story about a girl in high school in love with a young professor that, she cannot have. He's married. And the way she builds this story blew me away. It told me, can we stop? It told me that I was onto something, as in the I don't know if it was a translation or something, but it really struck a chord, and I thought, oh, I'm onto something here. Maybe this is not so far that I can create, that I can pour this thing into writing. And Naima Sasson it's not only grammatically beautiful, but it's the treatment of a very mundane, very everyday thing. How do you take a high school crush and turn it into something that is not, that it's not damaged by the Lolita effect? And Lolita had already been written. How do you take this girl and redeem her through words? And the author did brilliantly with that. It's just gorgeous. So that you have this child writing poems, and you never know with these two what the dynamics of the relationship, and it's so subtle in such a brief piece. Wonderful. It marked me forever. I thought, oh my gosh, if I can ever create something as beautiful as Naima Sasson writes verses, writes poems, it would be a good thing. So those two really marked me. And believe it or not, Charlotte Brontë, Jane Eyre. So what do I read? I read a lot of fiction, yes. I hate the kind of fiction that wants to tell a new story, because we have been in the planet for so long and we have gone through this over and over again. There is no way. It is the approach. It is, I think, beyond structure. It's emotional content, humanity, and also something that innovates in language. How do we construct? We have the same tools, but we need to reuse them to show you something different. So I'm interested in that kind of fiction. I'm not finding a lot of that lately, but then you stumble upon somebody like Junot Diaz, and you think, this nigga's onto something. Yeah, and it's simple. It's simple language, but it's the construction of it. There's one particular sentence in is it the Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, and he says, belly, and in English, he says, belly was given to the light. In Spanish, it's dar a luz, which is give to light, which is literally give to life, to light, but it's to give birth. And I thought, oh my God, that's so poetic, it's so beautiful, you're given to the light. And I thought, oh gosh, great. This is something that I'm sure the translators would have scratched heads over and say, and in the translation, it would have, fue dada a luz. And for the Spanish speakers, it will go unnoticed, perhaps. But the fact that he used the English to deliver that was wonderful. So you do have, I'm reading fiction that illuminates the way we use language. Not so concerned about the story, but also emotional punch. I don't want a page turner. I want a gut wrenching. It's different. Poetry. I'm reading a lot of Teemu Maninen, and I'm translating to Spanish out of sheer love for what he does. That kid will bring you to your knees, and it's worth the time. I usually don't do poetry. Oh, Lord. Feed starving writers. Give them a roof over their heads and some food and let them write. I don't think state effort should go into institutionalizing literature, meaning create workshops and things, because I don't believe this is a craft that can be taught. You do have the language that you're given, your inheritance. It's a sound thing. You get it from your parents, and then you add to it, and then you build it by yourself. This is not something that can be taught, I think. But the support of the artists, whether they're writers or painters or whatnot, is the ability to focus on the important, which is living. You have to live to write. And I don't, and I'm going to contradict myself on this one, because then you have animals like Bukowski, and you think that, you know, and he had such hard times, but he always made a good time of it. What would have happened if he was well fed? But then again, he used to say, you know, the best way to write was with a steak and a bottle of whiskey, and I agree. But when I'm well fed, I don't write that much. Something that happened here in Iowa. I'm not writing much, but I'm thinking a lot. So writing, I think it's 80% thinking and the other typing. So yeah, state support for artists who are capable of create and need a parenthesis and hiatus to recoup from the madness, so they can eventually sit down and give us what the madness was. And so us, the protected, can see what it's like and don't forget. I lived in the States from 1995 till 99, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was a very well lived life. It was very, very protected and quite well off. Iowa City, well protected. It's Smallville. It's almost like a studio. I'm thinking I'm going to bump into the cameraman anytime, and it's surprising how. Can I say this? Yes, fake. And the people sometimes, and then you talk to them, you stare in the eye, and you know they're alive. Then they took me to San Francisco, and I thought, this is it. This is the land of insanity. You're homeless, you're insane, your mental patients are roaming the streets. You have drifters. I'm thinking, good Lord, it was a land of insanity. There's one vivid picture, image in my head of Teemu Maninen, Sule, Lee, myself, and Nibu, Mohammed. We were all coming back from a party, in the subway, and we were just surrounded by this mass of the homeless, of the deranged, of the forgotten, and I'm thinking, really? In my particular case, I want to think that I'm here for them. Do not forget them. Everything, yeah, this is going on, and we are well fed, and we have sandwiches and whatnot, but do not forget them. They are a part of America, and I wonder, where do you push your poor when they're no longer wanted? Where do they go? Apparently they live in San Francisco by the subway, and it was illuminating to see them and to talk to them. It really was. It was the most striking experience of being in the U.S. This land, just like everywhere else in the world, has hunger and insanity. And many, many are forgotten. And yes, this is the land of the free, but nobody is. And this is also the land of the broken, but so is the rest of the world. So that had a big impact on me. What the are you doing? That would be the question, and then I'll gladly tell them. Thank you. That's it?
Yeah.